Hello and welcome to the Team VVV video podcast. I'm Kevin and joining me this week is Alan.
Hello viewers.
So this is actually episode 44 and believe it or not, this time next week or thereabouts, we've been doing this podcast for a whole year. Where does the time go? Amazing, isn't it?
I know, amazing. And it's been great fun all the way. You know, the podcast sort of developed a lot over the past year and with all the video clips and stuff like that. And it's great to get all the community questions as well now. So yeah, brilliant.
Awesome. So I think we're going to kick things off this week with the McLaren World's Fastest Gamer eSports competition.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I went to McLaren on Monday, had a, you know, you're going to see in the main McLaren video, but I'll talk about it again. I'll repeat myself here, but yeah, so we had a tour of McLaren. We had the option to see Jensen Button testing in the simulator. That was nice. We were the first journalists ever or outsiders to actually see the simulator in action, cool. Especially with a Formula One driver in there. You know, and it was yeah, it was a nice sort of triple projector rig with a curved screen with a moving chassis on it nice. and a connection to the helmet so that it was giving the driver G-force with their head.
Really? Oh my
goodness. And then behind them was a bank of screens with engineers, just like there is in the pit lane paddock, with all the telemetry and data, so they could see that the throttle response was identical to the actual racetrack and stuff like that.
Wow.
Graphically, it was pretty dull. I mean, it was sort of R factor 1 levels of detail, and I was quite surprised how little detail there was. But you know, it's very important for the team and in terms of development. And I think the world's fastest gamer is obviously they're going to try these competitions, which haven't been clearly outlined, and they weren't clearly outlined at the event. And you know, it's going to be someone who's big into motorsports. They've got to keep in good shape. They've got to be consistent and able to go in that simulator for 6 hours a day. You know, be able to go hammer it round from lap 1 to lap 100, and they've got to also eventually they're going to have to learn very quickly when it comes to parts on the car in terms of your diff or whatever you're changing, bits and pieces, so that the engineers can quickly understand when they change an element that you can report on what's worked and hasn't worked and stuff like that. So it's a real technical role, and you'd be there conversing with the drivers, whether it's Jensen and Fernando or Stoffel, in terms of the information. So you know, it's a big role, and you'll see in part 2 we've got Q&A with Logitech, Sparco, with Fernando's engineers that were there as well.
Cool.
And then in part 3, we're going to hear from the man in charge of it all, Zach Brown. And, you know, obviously he's going to be, you know, Monaco and then flying straight off to Indianapolis to meet Fernando Alonso. So it's going to be a busy weekend for him, my goodness. And it's, you know, it's a really interesting role. And I think we're going to debate this more as it continues, because at the moment there's not a lot of information. But suffice to say that as soon as we have information, it will appear on the website. So if you are keen on going for the McLaren's World's Fastest Gamer competition and you think you've got what it takes and you're committed to it, then keep an eye on the website. And as soon as we have information, it'll be on there. And yeah, we might be back to McLaren later in the year, meeting the winners and stuff like that. There's a long way to go in this competition.
Yeah. I will just say there are a few details out there. We know it kicks off in July. There's going to be 4 separate qualifying events. So you're going to have your PC players. You've got your, I assume it's going to be the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 separately.
That's right.
And then interestingly, you know, you talk about the serious simulation and the serious role at the end of it, but they're going to be holding a mobile qualifying event, which is very unusual, isn't it? Because how do you translate mobile skills into real world skills?
I think the way they look at it is, you know, they're looking for some people. It's like when I saw the world champion Tetris player a few years ago. Okay, and this guy was like an alien. I mean, the way he could just teleport the Tetris pieces, he could do it on 2 screens at once. It's like some people were like, they have a mobile, they might be skint, they've got no money, they get given a mobile racing game, and they become alien at it.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is, we want the aliens from every console, PC and mobile.
Yes.
And we want to bring those top people from each format together, and then they're going to push each other. They're going to push themselves because it's not about racing each other, it's about racing yourself and nailing those lap times consistently, faster. And if you can get metronomic with whatever equipment you have, they want to have you. They want the very best gamer. So
yeah, I guess they're sort of opening it up to the whole world and saying, if you've got any decent skills, perhaps they will be transferable. So
right.
It's all about reactions, I guess, hand-to-eye coordination, a lot of mental strengths, I guess, with these things. But it's interesting to see they used R Factor 2 for the very first qualifying heat.
Interesting, and for me, it's nice for the PC, but for everyone else, obviously, I think R Factor 2 has, with mods and various stuff in it, it's a lot they can work with. I think that's why they've gone with that.
I mean, there is a professional platform of R Factor 2, which is used by the sort of industry professionals. So I guess there is that tie-in. I don't believe we'll see that. It'll be a normal R Factor 2, as I understand it, open.
Yeah.
For players,
well, remember, when you go to Silverstone, or base simulators, wherever you go, they all use R Factor generally. They've been using R Factor for years. It's a good base simulation. So, and some of them use R Factor Pro, which is a more advanced version. So, I can see why they've done that. In terms of mass market appeal, well, it doesn't have that. It has its own.
No.
But then PC has several niches. So it's going to be difficult when some people, play iRacing or Assetto Corsa or whatever. But most PC players have got an R Factor anyway there. So, if there was a structured challenge, you'll see a lot of them coming out the woodwork and getting on there. And we'll see what the console ones are in due course. But,
I believe it'll probably be Assetto Corsa. I don't think it'll be Forza Motorsport 7.
You never know. You never know.
Though.
It depends how solid the base material is. I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It's a total mystery.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say Forza Motorsport 6. Just correcting myself.
Yeah, no, we don't. We have no idea at this stage. So we'll wait and see. I don't think they even know, but we'll see what happens.
I guess we're going to move on now to some more light-hearted stuff with Micro Machines World Series. From the hands-on you had recently, Alan, it seems like you had an awful lot of fun with the title. It seems like it's one of those titles that's come along at the right time, isn't it? We have all these serious racers, and along comes the much-needed sort of Micro Machines, a sort of breath of fresh air in the racing genre. But of course, the problem is because it comes out in the sort of death month of June, with all these high sort of profile releases, we're worried it might get a bit swallowed up.
Yeah, it's a terrible time of year for it to be released. I think it would have been ideal to have had it released at Easter. I think that would have been great to have had Micro Machines released around Easter time. We've not racing game wise, we've had hardly anything released this year, and now we have a 2-week period where we have MXGP 3, we have Formula Fusion, Wipeout Omega, Dirt 4, MotoGP 2017, and then a week or so after that we have Micro Machines. It's a really crazy month. The thing is, they're all very different games to an extent. Obviously, 2 of them are bike games, both by Milestone. I mean, Milestone are actually probably damaging their own product by releasing 2 so close together.
And that's irrespective of the other releases, even. Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah. It's a strange one, and they're launching MotoGP in the middle of E3, right in the middle of E3.
And not for the first time either,
Not for the first time. They did it in 2013. They've done it
dear.
And it just all gets lost in the content. So I mean, it's not the best time for them, but for Micro Machines, it's a nice little title. I think Micro Machines, providing it's a decent game, it will keep going. I think the only concerns any of us have is on longevity, if there's enough content in there. And I think that's the only concern that we have at the moment. And I think that also just seeing how playable it is, how well it works long term. There's a few things that we still need to try out and see how well it works. So there's still a lot to understand on it, but certainly first impressions are positive. But I think it's one of those games that when it's coming out maybe $24.99 or $19.99, something like that.
Yeah. And
I think when we see it, it's not a full price game, but it will continue selling well at a budget price for a long time.
Yeah. It's I mean, they released Toy Box Turbo before, and I guess it's like an evolution on that, and they've tested water with Toy Box. Obviously they got good results with that. The game was pretty well received, so I guess a new Micro Machines title was a sort of next logical step. So it's not a massive surprise to see it. It's a shame we didn't get it earlier though. It's been a while, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it has been a while, but I think this is sort of a new Codemasters now. I mean, they've been developing the new graphics engine that came out for Formula One last year. They've been reinvesting, a lot more reinvestment in Codemasters now. Dirt Rally was successful, and we'll see what brands they work on and bring back. But I think for Micro Machines, this is a phase 1 again, and I think if it's successful, you'll see Micro Machines that build on this as well. World Series Part 2, one day that builds on it. So, but yeah, it's positive for them at the moment. But just releasing 2 games in the same month, seems to be. I mean, both them and Milestone are doing the same thing.
They are.
And it seems to be.
It's a bit of a rush, isn't it? It's getting the games out before the summer holidays. And you mentioned Codemasters have 2 titles. Of course, the other title is the much anticipated Dirt 4, which is one of the hottest games right now, along with, say, Project Cars 2. Those 2 games are really sort of the hot property right now. And again, was lucky enough to get hands-on with the game, and we was left very impressed.
Yeah, Dirt 4, it's come along nicely. I mean, the generator is certainly an interesting prospect, and there's a few things we didn't look at. I mean, we didn't look at the new Gymkhana mode, and I've got to look at that and see those various modes.
They're not actually calling it Gymkhana, though. They're sort of trying to get away from that. But it is Gymkhana of sorts, as I understand it.
It is. It's a fun sort of... I have seen it, but we didn't have time to do all that in our early preview, but that'll be in the full game overview once we have that. But yeah, I mean, I think it seems like a lot of fun. Like you say, I think the only concern when it comes to reviews is going to be, is there enough content? Yes. My concerns are, I would say, that how much rallycross content is there? I mean, it's a official World Rallycross game, but with only 6 circuits, and they're very small circuits. So
I think it's only 5 circuits, actually.
It's only 5 circuits.
Yeah, right. Well, so Dirt Rally had 3, and they added 2 on top. So I think it was Montalegre and Holliers, I think it might have been. Or they added 2 on top of Dirt Rally anyway, so it's not a massive amount. Like you say, because it's the official Rallycross game, you would expect a few more tracks.
Well, you'd expect the entire season. I mean, that's what you expect in the official game. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less than that. So I think that's one issue of concern. Maybe some will come in DLC, who knows. I think the other issue is the buggies and stuff. They have 3 core locations, and that was just one thing where I thought, I would have liked a couple more locations, maybe.
Yeah, I guess it would be nice if they could implement your stage to the buggy content, wouldn't it?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I think that it's something that they might work on in the future. I definitely feel that Dirt 4 is a step in a certain direction. Yes. I think it's something that we'll see more of in terms of an evolution. Yes. But it's not ultimately where they want to go. I get the feeling that there's a lot more they want to achieve. But
yeah, exactly. It seems like the Your stage is almost a sort of workaround to allow them to get more sort of variety into the game. We've only got 5 locations, 5 countries, so it is still very small. But with the career mode, as far as I understand it, the career mode will have, in terms of rally, A to B rally content, is exclusively using the Your stage technology.
That's right.
So in effect, everybody's career mode will be slightly different. So that has something going for it in that sense. But it's very early days with the tech, and the way they've been saying they're going to continue with this Your stage. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So it'd be interesting to see how it works out with the career mode.
We'll see. I mean, as I understand it on the career mode, everyone will play the same stages, even though the stages were made with the track generator.
I see. Okay, that puts a different spin on it.
But the other thing is that you can generate a stage, and if you like it, you can send it to your friends, so you can all race on the same one together and stuff like that. But you can make very long, very complex stages, and playing stages in the day, great. Playing stages at night is going to be a whole different ball game. And this is really going to show you, the best players, because before people could learn the stages, but now they can't. Now it's going to be randomized. And it'll be interesting to see how different players cope with it. Yeah. And I look forward to testing that in terms of exploring a new stage and just trying out a long one, a short one, a complex one, a simple one, and seeing how it all works. So
I remember Codemasters. They said that the Your stage generator can generate stages between 1 kilometer and 13. So we're not getting longer stages in Dirt Rally, but still there's that nice sort of range of length. So, people will be able to find something that suits them, which is good to see. Yeah,
I mean, it turns out it works out. I mean, I think they might be slightly longer than Dirt Rally, but either way, it'll be interesting to see. It's just it's one of those games that, yeah, you can play it, but until you've actually got it at home and you're able to do lots of driving, you don't know how much longevity it has. My only question with it is longevity. That's the only question, is it going to last? And that's something we can't tell until we actually have it. But I look forward to trying it out. I mean, we've got a preview coming where I was testing with a wheel. I was finding it more difficult, the sim handling this time, at least on rallycross, than I found it before. You know, I'd say that the only weakness for me was in force feedback. I wasn't quite getting the detail in the force feedback I would have liked, especially on Lydden Hill. And I'll talk a bit about that in the video. But besides that, it's just a bit too smooth. I wasn't getting the rugged bumps of the gravel coming to me. So, and the handling was slightly different. The cars are a bit more individual this time. And I was, you know, for example, you're going into a corner, you hit the brakes, you get oversteer, you stamp on the throttle and give it some offset lock and then slide through the corner. And then the car just keeps sliding out off the track. So you back off the power, you try to stop it sliding, and sometimes you just have no chance. It's very difficult to find consistency in the short term, just in the runs I had today. But I think once I've got it at home, again, like last time, you know, I'll put some laps in, and once you put some serious laps in, you know, you find the detail. And the one thing about dirt rally was some cars were easy-ish, some cars were extremely hard to drive. So, you know, it really does vary car to car in terms of the experience, and that's why it's very difficult for me to say how it compares directly to dirt rally. But we're just going to play it and test it as its own thing and go from there.
I mean, I guess the most intriguing thing with Dirt 4 is the sort of gamer handling versus the simulation handling. You know, it's trying to be trying to appeal to the full spectrum, and I don't believe we've had a title quite like this before. So it's a sort of first for the racing genre, and it'd just be interesting to see if it really does work. You know, can someone pick up the game, you know, use the gamer handling and then transition onto simulation handling? You know, it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But you know, in theory, it's a good element to have in there, and perhaps this could be a sort of future model for racing games in the future.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes down. You know, it's funny how many people watched the video the other day and say, "Oh, it looks arcadey." Well, I did explain in the video that the first part is gamer and the second part is sim handling, and so many people just don't listen to the video.
No,
but we'll just have to wait and see. You know, in terms of, as I say, content is the only thing that's really going to decide whether the game sort of lasts or not. But we'll wait and see.
So another game we recently got our hands on was MotoGP 17. I think it's fair to say that we've seen massive improvements compared to last year's title, you know, especially in terms of sound. And of course, we've got the 60 frames running on the console. So a fantastic achievement there for Milestone. You know, you got hands on with the game. You've said that the handling felt a little bit closer to Ride 2 than MotoGP, which in my eyes is a good thing.
Yeah, there was a little bit more movement in the bike. You felt a little bit more in control. The bike was a little bit more easier to predict in terms of its line into the corners, so you were able to brake a bit earlier, but you could see that apex where you wanted to hit and go for it and feel like you had a bit more control on the throttle. So in all those areas, it just felt a bit better. But, you know, it's difficult balance, you know, trying to get a MotoGP game right. They're not easy bikes to control.
No, they're not. No.
They're not easy bikes to ride on the racing line. When you're playing the game, you know, it's going to be a challenge. So yeah, more content to come on the channel on that as well. So lots to look forward to.
Yeah, sounds cool. I mean, I'm a big Ride 2 fan, you know, and this sort of seeing these amazing sounds and, you know, the way they've sort of got the frame rate together. It's to me, MotoGP 17 is going to be like a teaser almost to Ride 3 in the future, hopefully. So it is. You know, it's incredible how fast they're progressing, and we've got to say this is running on the old engine. So, you know, imagine Ride 3 on the Unreal Engine 4. You know, like we've seen with Gravel. You know, it has fantastic sounds. It just seems that Milestone are really sort of pushing the boat now, and they're really sort of getting everything coming together now at last. And you know, the transition to the Unreal Engine 4 would date back a year or two. It does take time to transition over, so they would know about this a long time ago, and no doubt be very excited to show off their games. But it was interesting to see that they showed off Gravel perhaps a little bit too early.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem to be surprisingly early. The game not due out for a long time. We don't know when it's coming out at the moment, but it did seem a bit early to me. They're this new Unreal Engine technology, and I think they just wanted to show it off, basically.
Yeah, I agree.
And it was more about, you know, how they developed the levels so quickly and stuff like that, rather than anything else. But we look forward to gravel next year, and I think, you know, MotoGP 2018, that will probably use the Unreal Engine. It will look even better, and I think things are only going to move in the right direction for Milestone right now. It's looking very positive for them, and that's great for racing gamers.
Yeah, of course, we don't have to wait long until the next Milestone title, MXGP 3, is coming out in just a matter of days now. So,
yeah,
and again, it's one of those games that's using the Unreal Engine 4 and looks incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it looks
impressive. MXGP 2.
It does. I mean, especially on the PC version we were playing a while ago, it looked fantastic. I mean, the game's out in a few days. They haven't given us any preview access, which is surprising to this game. Obviously, we had the previews back in February, but nothing since. So, you know, there's a big day one patch, and I know that it's meant to make a significant difference to the game, so they've decided to hold it back. So our previews won't come out probably until the game is released in the shops, and that's when you'll see our previews. So we'll wait and see. I mean, I am looking forward to it. I mean, the PC version was really nice to play earlier this year. Yet you still see so many people moaning in the comments. I mean, there's a lot of moaning going on right now, and I think, well, hang on a minute, guys. Look, this is probably as far as I'm aware, it's the best looking motocross game of its type ever released. Yes. It's like MotoGP. It's probably the best looking, best sounding MotoGP game there's been, you know. And you know, I think that
you have to sort of look for improvement. You can't just expect everything to be perfect. There's always a transition. Things improve gradually. I mean, we have seen a large push in Milestone's case, but you know, people have to realize that as long as things are going in the right direction, they should be, you know, developers should be encouraged.
Well, I often say to people in the comments, and you'll see this, and I urge other viewers to do the same, is when somebody says this game is rubbish, I often say, compared to what? And then they never respond. Show me what your reference material is that is good if this is rubbish. That's what I want to see, reference material. That's what the developers want to see. If you've got something that's better, show it to me, and I'll show it to the developers. You know, because I do relay a lot of these questions back to the developers. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely something which, you know, that everybody works on, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, they've had to put up with a lot of criticism in recent years. You know, some of it's founded and some perhaps not so. But, like, you know, they're listening to the fans more and more now. They're replying more on social media channels. So they're certainly learning the error of their ways, and they're bringing out, you know, some games that, I mean, for me, last year's Sebastian Loeb Rally Evo was a fantastic title, and Ride 2 as well, so much fun. So for me, I'm very excited for Milestone's future. And with this new Unreal Engine 4, you know, it just makes things even more exciting. So it's just, it's sort of, they're breaking free of the shackles from the old engine now. So they really can push their vision with the Unreal Engine 4. So it'll just be on another level now in terms of, you know, physics, sound, graphics, and, you know, it'd be interesting to see where they go in the future, and, you know, any more sort of new IPs we see in the future. So it's all good right now for Milestone. I think it's getting that nice sort of transition. And but these things take time, so people just got to be a little bit patient. And, you know, within the next 1 or 2 years, they're going to master the new Unreal Engine 4 tech, and, you know, we're going to see some pretty awesome games, no doubt, in the future.
Yeah.
So this year sees the release of some pretty awesome titles, the likes of GT Sports, Forza Motorsport 7, and of course Project Cars 2. So there's been a couple of news items for Project Cars 2 lately, all Indianapolis related. So we've seen the news story for the modern and classic Indianapolis content coming for Project Cars 2, which is interesting to see. It's nice to see more attention and love gone into these sort of classic cars and tracks. You know, we've seen it originally with Slightly Mad's Ferrari Racing Legends quite a few years ago now, and of course we've seen it with the Shift series as well, and it's good to see it's made a transition to Project Cars and Project Cars 2. So, I mean, Indianapolis, is this a track that you're looking forward to getting your hands on?
It is. I mean, I've never been a fan of the infield circuit. I've always found it pretty dull, but the actual oval itself is where the energy and the passion is, and the vibe to it, and that's really what I look forward to. I think it's nice that you've got all these old cars in there as well. It'll be interesting running them on different old tracks. It depends what they've got in the game. You know, it's one of those situations where great having these cars, but how many tracks can they race on officially? But either way, it's a nice addition. I see they're working on the crowd in the photos as well. Nice detail.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, though, is that Project Cars 2 looks different to the first one. It doesn't look massively better. It just looks a bit more refined than the first game.
Agreed.
In terms of detail, it's more refined. There are some graphical polish areas that I just like improved a bit here and there, just in terms of solidity in the environment. But other than that, it's all coming together very nicely. And I look forward to seeing this running with, you know, lots and lots of cars. You know, wow, this game's going to be so amazing if they can bring it all together. I mean, I look at all this and think, wow, I look at the modern IndyCar and those modern IndyCars, you know that you're going to have Indianapolis, and you know that you're going to have Road America in there. It was in the last game. You know that there's going to be Long Beach in there. You know, there's going to be quite a few of the official circuits will be in there, and it'll be great racing those cars. And I really look forward to that. And having driven it already around Long Beach, I know it's a huge challenge to drive, and it was a great sort of feeling of energy from the car. It really worked well. So that was a great experience trying that, and I really look forward to it. But the game is just shaping up really nicely at the moment, and you know, it's hugely complex. And as I say, you know, they are throwing everything at it, and I look forward to the proper previews. I mean, we've got more previews coming in a few weeks' time at E3. You're going to see some extensive previews on Project Cars there. We'll get all the hands-on, all the new courses, and there's going to be extensive coverage on it, you know, later in the summer as well. So we've got epic Project Cars coverage on the way, but we're just waiting at the moment till we get the go-ahead and we get the preview builds that we can work with and start really building on that. But there's a lot to explore under the bonnet, and I can't wait to see more. And of course, we've got to mention it, obviously, Indy 500 this weekend. Really looking forward to seeing, you know, Fernando Alonso doing his thing as the rookie and seeing how he gets on.
You know, I never thought that I'd hear Fernando Alonso and rookie in the same sentence. Amazing stuff. I mean,
funny how it happens. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's
but, you know, I remember many years ago when Nigel Mansell, the rookie, went there, and in his first year he won the IndyCar Championship.
Yeah,
and that guy was, you know what, Nigel Mansell. That's why I love Nigel Mansell. I mean, that's why he's probably my favourite all-time driver, because, you know, the record books will never tell you just how good he was as a driver. You know, they'll say, hey, Ayrton Senna won in 1991 because Ayrton Senna was the best. Actually, no, Nigel Mansell's car broke down 5 races in a row when he was leading on the last couple of laps. Goodness. I mean, the history never tells you that. The history tells you that Mansell won in 1992 with a more powerful, you know, obviously he had traction control they didn't have. But then the same historians forget to tell you that the McLarens that Prost and Senna won had more technology and better equipment than everyone else, which is why they won every year. So, you know, Mansell was an incredible driver, and, you know, it'd be great to see Fernando going there and waving the flag for Formula One and, you know, putting himself in the mix this weekend. It'd be very interesting to see.
Yep, cool. Okay, I think it's probably time now we go over to the Q&A. So a little bit of a shorter podcast this week. It's just, it wasn't an awful lot of news this week after the sort of mammoth news week of the previous week. So let's kick things off with Twitter. So James Allen asks, any news on DLC for Dirt 4 outside of the Hyundai i20 pre-order bonus?
No news at all yet. We'll wait and see.
Okay, that was very succinct.
Yep.
So Daz asks, can you really be a competitive racer using a controller, or is a wheel pedal combo a must?
You can be a competitive gamer using a controller. Absolutely, yes. You can. The wheel offers more precision, but the way games are designed, you can, if you're good with a controller, you can make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some people are so smooth with the steering inputs on the controller. I don't know how they do it. I guess you can buy these sort of stick extenders, can't you, to add on top of your analog sticks?
You can. What a lot of players do is they push. Well, a lot of players push up on the controller.
Yeah, that's it.
And sort of doing it side to side. It's very tricky to do. Very intense experience. Not for me, but.
Of course, you've got the accelerator and brake. You need to be very smooth on the triggers as well. So that's another element that's. I've got so much respect for these really fast controller guys, because, you know, what they do is amazing. Whereas, you know, with with a control, with a racing wheel and pedal setup, you've obviously got that sort of extra degrees of control and precision, like you say. So it's amazing how they can be fast, or just as, even faster using a controller over a wheel user. So it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so KK78 asks, is Project Cars 2 spreading itself too thinly by catering to such a wide array of different motorsport disciplines? It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I was kind of highlighting about the old Indy cars. I mean, it's not like, okay, you've got these old Indy cars, but do they only work on that circuit, or are there other old circuits? Like on Assetto Corsa, you had old Monza, stuff like that. Or even on Project Cars 1, they had like old Silverstone and stuff like that. I think it's nice when you have the old cars, the old tracks to go with the old cars.
Yes,
so there's that. There's some areas where you say, are they doing enough? Like for example, let's break it down. They're doing road cars now. In a way, I'm kind of more keen on them doing racing cars and thoroughbred racing cars. Focusing on the motorsport aspect. The other thing you've got the ice racing. How much ice racing is going to be in there. You've got rallycross. You'll have more rallycross circuits than Codemasters, but you still won't have a full season.
No.
It's not yet. So there's all that. Will it have the full IndyCar season in it? Will it have all the tracks? Maybe not. So ultimately, yes, there's enough tracks in there to run any season properly. That there's going to be loads of other race tracks, and it will have more tracks than any other game. Whether it's got more of the authentic tracks relating to that season is another thing. So I would say that there's a load of content in there. I mean, it's unbelievable amounts of content. But when you say spreading yourselves too thinly, certainly there are going to be, some racing series where you'll have to chop and change between real life tracks and, tracks that aren't in that series, or perhaps old ones that used to be and stuff like that. But either way, I mean, I've had a little look, and, whatever you're running, whether it's Le Mans, whether it, WEC, whether it's, touring car, GT, there's something for everyone in there. So there's definitely a decent selection, but we'll wait and see how well it caters for all of these different series, and we will look at in a future video.
Yep, sounds good. Right, so over to Facebook then. Boris Zheliaskov asks, what's your opinion about track editors?
My opinion is traditionally they've been thoroughly dull. They've created lifeless environments that haven't worked out very well, and I think that's why I've been so impressed with what they've achieved with DiRT. It's a very cool looking system, but I've not played it enough yet to fully appreciate whether it truly works or not.
They're quite few and far between, aren't they? I mean,
they are few and far between, because notoriously they've been dull and they've never really worked very well.
I guess the biggest culprit is probably Gran Turismo on that front, because it's like you say, they're so generic, these environments. It's one of those things that you need to get right, don't you, for people to be invested in it. When you see generic environments, it just puts you off. There's no personality to the environments. There's no life. There's nothing that sort of brings you back. Whereas, like you say, with DiRT 4, you've seen the tracks that look sort of carved out from the landscape. Incredibly impressive stuff.
Very impressive. Yeah, you were saying that carved out from the landscape feeling is what gives it life. Going up hills and down hills, and it feels like it's authentically there, part of the environment. Gran Turismo didn't.
It doesn't feel. No, Gran Turismo for me was almost like a carpet, wasn't it? Added, like, it's very smooth, it's almost
it was like it's like a Lego set, really, and you piece bits of road together and you end up with a track. But and there have been other examples in the past, but nothing I can remember off the top of my head. But none of it appealed to me. It was all just they had it in Trackmania. I think they had one as well. And there was a few other games that had things. And
I think V-Rally had one back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few that have been around. None of them have created tracks that have really interested me. So this is the first time where a developer may get it right, and this could bring in, if they do a good job with it, then more developers might come aboard with this kind of tech. But interesting.
Right. So Jake Annetz asks, do you think fans of Rallycross will go for DiRT 4 or Project Cars 2 this year?
I think they'll go for both, actually. I think they're both they're both quite different. I mean, Dirt 4 is a rally game at its core. It's a rally game. Project Cars is a track-based racing game. I think, you know, ultimately, I think it'll be interesting to see how the two, when it comes to Rallycross, though, it'll be interesting to see how the two games
match up.
Together.
I mean, it's a good question in the sense that because they're very similar in terms of content. I think Project Cars 2 might have maybe 2 or 3 more tracks, but like you say, Dirt 4 has that sort of rally heritage. So it's going to be a bit of a toss-up. If you're only looking for one rallycross game this year, it's going to be a really tough decision, isn't it?
It is going to be a tough decision. I mean, you know, on paper, Project Cars 2 is head and shoulders the best game on paper because there's so much there in it. I mean, the content is on another level in terms of how much is there. But it doesn't have rallying, you know? So there we go. Project Cars 3's got to have the rally.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, it doesn't have rallying. It's not a rally game. And you know that Codemasters have got a damn fine rally experience with the sim handling combined with that stage generator. And the other contents that's in the game. You know, plus the arcade mode as well, the gamer handling. You know, I don't think you can. I think it's a problem only in both. There's a nice space in terms of release. You get your Dirt 4 in June, and 4 or 5 months later you get your Project Cars 2.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because there is quite a gap between the two, which is good in a way, but you know, we worry that perhaps Project Cars 2 will be going up against Forza Motorsport 7. And who knows when GT Sport's going to come out? I mean, that could drop any time from E3 onwards. You know, we never know. So it's going to be epic battle between these 3 sort of juggernauts. Whereas Dirt 4 has its own battle in a sense with Milestone, you know, next month. So it's going to be interesting to see how all these battles pan out and who gets on top of who. You know, so it's a very exciting year, I think, for racing game fans.
There will be winners and there will be losers this year. At the moment, the interesting one, I think, is Gran Turismo. You know, where does Gran Turismo stack up? You know, is it performing well online in the beta? It's not, frankly. I mean, my races were very, very laggy. They were not nearly ready for launch, and I've not seen them improve enough to say that it's going to be launching anytime soon. So we'll have to wait and see if Gran Turismo does make it this year. As much as we say it needs to, if it's not ready, what do? Do they release a half-finished GT Sport that has, you know, significant amount of lag or not? You know, we'll have to see what happens at E3 because there's going to be some big announcements at E3 as we understand it. So I mean, we're looking forward to what they bring there.
It's such an epic year for racing games that really and truly you cannot release a half-baked racing game because it will just be dead. I mean, I guess Gran Turismo is an exception in the fact that it's got the brand, they've got the name. You know, it's going to sell regardless of its quality. Let's be honest. But I guess aside from Gran Turismo, there's not many games that can, you know, you can release a sort of unfinished product. So it's going to be a really tough one for Gran Turismo to actually make an impact this year against other titles in terms of the content.
Well,
you know,
Gran Turismo has marketing budget. So the thing is that the games that sell the best are the games with the most marketing. I mean, we see it a lot in the comments on videos. You know, you see amazing games that don't have marketing budget. You know, I think Redout was a good example last year. Nobody cared about it because it didn't have a marketing budget. You know, Need for Speed, even if it's terrible, it will sell loads. You know, so even if it's a dreadful game, people are going to go, it's amazing because marketing tells me it's amazing. You know, Gran Turismo, even if it's not a great game, will still sell millions of copies. But ultimately, that will damage the brand in the long term. So they might win the short term battle, but they won't win the long-term war. Where Project Cars is concerned is they've really got something special there. Even if it doesn't sell as well at launch, it will keep on going, providing the game is solid and doesn't have the bugs and issues that the first one had. But they do need to get it right. They cannot release it with a shed load of bugs and optimization issues. It needs to be right. And there's a lot to do. So, you know, there will be winners and losers. I think Forza Motorsport, I don't think they'll have any problem because they're going to look incredible on the Scorpio. It's just going to look mind-blowing. you know, it's going to be interesting to see what they managed to do with the Xbox One.
Yeah.
Because they did incredible things with the last Forza game. For me, it's all about the handling. You know, they need to redo that handling, and until they do, you know, I'm not really interested in Forza Motorsport. I didn't like 5 that much. Really didn't like 6. They need to do something to improve that handling. So we'll wait and see where that's concerned. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a competitive year of third quarter finally.
Yeah. So our final question comes from Adam Lee. He asks, thoughts on real life Formula E, and would you like to see a full game or license to Project Cars 2? There won't be a full game, will there, in Formula E, unless it
won't be a full game.
Much more popular.
Yeah, the license isn't valuable enough for that.
No.
And it depends how picky they are over what a Formula E game needs to be. You know, now we had Formula E cars in Forza Motorsport. I actually think probably Formula E would have fitted well into Project Cars 2, as it happens, in terms of everything that they're doing.
I think they've got enough on their plate, though.
I think they do. I think they do, absolutely. On the bright side, though, I always say this about Formula E, is it's one car, so you only need to model one chassis. They all handle identically. So in that sense, it's not a massive inclusion of Project Cars 2. And I think if you look at the things, the various different courses, like Long Beach, like Monaco, they've already got them in the game.
Yeah, very true.
It's not like they need to model lots and lots of different courses. Obviously, there will be a few in there that they don't have for sure, but I think that's the only issue, is because they do inner city circuits, they take a long time to model. So I think it's going to be a long time till we see a quality Formula E game. It could be a few years.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's about it for the podcast, unless you have anything to add, Alan.
Yeah, I'm going to add that we're going to have some more MotoGP content coming up on the channel, and also mention about the sad passing of Nicky Hayden this past week. It's something that we made the MotoGP video before that news came out, and it was very sad news to hear of his passing, and it's something that we're going to mention in the next MotoGP video as well. So I think that would be the right thing to do there. Nice guy, and very sad to see him go. And again, it's one of those guys like Michael Schumacher, like Colin McRae, like Graham Hill, you know, all the risks they take in their racing, all the injuries they sustain, and then something silly away from the racetrack happens, and it takes them away from us far too young.
Yep. Okay, so thanks as ever for watching and listening. Do keep your questions coming in for the Q&A, and we'll see you again next time.